magnificent, impressive, phenomenal, superior, exceptional,
There we go.
eminent, dominant, great, excellence, outstanding.
Welcome to the Dude Catholic Podcast. I'm your co-host Adrian here with the man who spies on your FBI agent.
I'm Ramon.
Yeah, you is. Today we finish a series titled Outstanding, with an episode titled
The hard thing.
Our scripture today comes from
1 Corinthians chapter 15, verse 33. Do not be deceived. Bad company ruins good morals.
Delicious.
Indeed. Yes, delicious indeed. You said it right, sir. So let's get this podcast on the road. Now, I'm going to look at my notes because I actually have notes for a change. Because things seem to go better when you have notes. Except the times when it doesn't happen that way. But today we're talking about the path of most resistance. Now, this is not a tough guy thing that we're talking about. But it's not a tough guy thing. But it could also be a stupid thing if we take it the wrong way. Just like anything. You know, just like piety. We can be over pious, overzealous, and whatnot. But, come on. It's not going to be that many occasions. It takes a lot of foolishness to take it the wrong way. So let's talk about the right way. And we have been actually talking about it in the right way. We talked about little Bridger Walker. I don't know if I slurred that one. Bridger Walker, whose famous words were, "If anyone is to die, then it should be me." Little 6-year-old kid got mangled by a dog, took on the path of most resistance. Path of least resistance is go get someone else and let the little girl get mangled. But it's still the right thing to get someone else who can do something about it. But the best thing was the harder thing. And that is to give of yourself so that the beloved might live. Very Jesus-like. Another Jesus-like thing is protecting those who cannot protect themselves at your own personal cost. Because we talked about Tim Ballard in the last episode and how he left his cushy federal government job with lots of benefits. And let me tell you something, as an old man, not old, but as not a young adult, I would call myself. I find that these things matter a lot. You know, my kids having benefits and this and that. Not to say that Tim ignored his kids, because he didn't. But he made his life a lot harder by leaving that job so that he can protect kids from being trafficked. And that is the path of most resistance. To protect at personal cost. Why? Because it matters. Because God's children are not for sale. Like I said earlier, it's not always the hardest thing, but it is the thing that will make the most impact. Now, I remember one particular Lent, a couple of years back when I was teaching at a Catholic school. I was telling the kids that the harder thing is not necessarily going to be the holier thing. And so, not to contradict what I'm saying, but to support the fact that it is the thing that has the most impact. And sometimes it is going to be the harder thing. But just to cut to the chase, I told the kids that, for Lent, you can pick up doing the dishes every day. Or you can pick up giving your parent a hug whenever they come back from work. Like, as they come into the door, you greet them with a hug. And see which one of those is harder, probably doing the dishes, and which one's going to have the most impact, probably hugging the parent. And it's not to say that they shouldn't do the dishes. They should. Mm-hmm. By all means. You live there rent-free. And even if you contribute a little bit, carry your weight. It's important. And sometimes it's going to be thankless. Because sometimes I wake up early and I do dishes and it doesn't get appreciated. But who cares? I appreciate it. And I know that it Even if it goes unnoticed, it doesn't go unnoticed by me. Doing the right thing is always the right thing. And it's not always the easiest thing.
When I go visit my mom, James lives there with my mom, and he likes to watch TV and, technology stuff, 21st century stuff,
Mm-hmm.
He's 7 now, so he's still kind of little, but not that little.
Yeah.
But he's developing really messy habits, or he has been developing messy habits. And to be fair, like, you need to be on top of things when you're raising kids. And I noticed that he just somewhat gets to do whatever he wants. He watches TV when he wants, especially now that they're not going to school, not yet, at least. So when I go visit and spend the night or whatever, when I go visit, he tries to do the same thing where he sits down and the living room is kind of a mess with his toys and the pillow or whatever, just something kind of it's not where it needs to be. So I tell him, hey dude, remember what we agreed on? He's like, what? That's his thing. What? Like, come on, dude. Like, you know what we agreed on before you watch TVs or you play any of your little games. Gotta make sure that this area is like really neat, because you have to. Most of the time he'll listen to me, but I notice that when my mom or his mom, when my sister tells him to do something, he'll give them attitude. It's like, but why? I don't want to. And then the few times that I've been lucky enough to be there when he does that, I talk to him and I tell him just what I was telling you guys. Like, hey, remember what we agreed on? And he goes, what? And it's like, yeah, dude, like and even when he gives me lip, he's like, no, I don't want to, but I don't want to. He's like, yeah, but you're part of this family, right? It's like, oh, well, yeah. I was like, yeah, you are. That means you're important, but it's also very important that we keep the living room organized and neat, especially if it's our things that are making it dirty and unneat. I'm not even sure if that's a word, but
it is now.
But the English is hard.
Indeed.
And he understands when you give them the reason why with patience, instead of because I said so or because you're supposed to, and all those things are very much true. But if you don't take the time to tell the kid, hey, dude, take care of the little things because you're part of this family. And as a family, we keep this place livable. Be part of the family. As guys, we tend to think that showing emotion is really hard, but we're not shy to share anger.
Mm-hmm.
And we need to take a step back and realize how asinine that is, because anger is also an emotion, dude, if you didn't know. But yet, that's not so difficult for us to show, because it's so easy to just go, bleh.
Mm-hmm.
And it's crazy how we don't show them the right way of dealing with things, because it's so much easier to just go, because I said so, because you have to, or whatever the reason may be. Why don't we do the harder thing instead? Swallow our pride, swallow our anger, or whatever it is that we're feeling, and tell the little kid the reason why it's so important that area is clean. Because it's not only for his own benefit, it's for your own benefit, for your heart, what's doing inside of you. Because we want to accomplish great things already, but we need to start with the basics. We need to lay down that foundation, and not just for the little kid. And yes, I'm using myself as an example. And not just with the little kid, but also what it's doing in your heart. Because like I said, we're so, at least me, well, I'm not good at showing my emotions. Yeah, but it's so easy for me to express my anger and do the easy thing. Mm-hmm. When it's just like,
Yeah, same right here. And I think a lot of people are going to be agreeing with this, as they're listening, because it's true. I mean, there's nothing else to that. I'm not going to try to expand on that much, but it is true. It's really easy to just lash out. Why? Because it's easier. I don't think it's because it's socially acceptable. That's BS. It's because it's easier. Mm-hmm. That's why. There's no other reason other than laziness. And so when it comes to that, like, I have 3 kids. I don't usually name them all the time, huh? Like, I don't say like, oh, like Sophia, Tommy, Clara, like that those are their names, my 3 kids, 6, 10, and 11. the 11-year-old is maturing a little too fast, for my taste, because I look at her baby pictures and whatnot, and I see the kind of people they are. They're so good, their hearts are so gentle and kind and loving, and they're always looking for the best thing, and looking, how do you say this, when you see the best in people, there you go. But yeah, I noticed those habits too, at the moment they woke up, they started using their technology, and I'm like, dude, like, what's going on? So both their mom and I, we've been really, really adamant about them before they use their technology to get ready for the day, make up their bed, brush their teeth, and then they can go on to that while we make breakfast or whatever. And the thing is, like, if they want it, they're gonna do it. And then, like you said, what's at the core of doing all this, and corazon, heart, at the heart of this is their heart, and what it's gonna do for them and for those who they serve. And we were talking about this, just transitioning to the work environment, how we were just talking about how I don't really care for my desk at work.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't want to be at my desk, and how when we're doing more, when we're taking the path of most resistance, in this case, we're talking about doing more. I don't care to sit at my desk. As a matter of fact, in the last school year, my first year at a public school, I got offered a comfy seat, and I took it just because, comfy chair looks cool at the desk. But I hated that chair. Not just because it had a minor mechanical difficulty with it, but because it was comfortable. Like, it was too comfortable, and I ended up putting it to the side. And the kids would ask me, like, why do you put your chair to the side and use this, like, stool? I'm like, because it's comfortable. Like, the stool is comfortable. No, not the stool is comfortable. The seat is comfortable. And if I sit down, I'm not going to want to get up. And the way I teach is I walk around a lot and I check on their work, because how many missed opportunities do teachers have? To encourage someone or to validate someone's work, someone's honest effort. I was telling pre-recording, I was telling you how one of the things that I talked about on the podcast, how I said that to one kid that he wasn't a screw up. It happened during one of these times when I was walking around. When I give kids work, and it's self-directed work, I can't just go and sit down. And yes, I have a pile of things to grade, but I would get up, or I would stay up and walk around and check on them and address the ones that weren't working. But the most important part was encouraging those, the same students, that would talk, or the one that is seen as a problem child, I guess, and remind them that they're not a screw up. And it was an indirect conversation. I was talking to other kids, and I was kind of mentioning some stuff, and I was right there in between them and him. And that's when I mentioned you're not a screw up. And he picked up on that. And he's like, are you talking to me? I'm like, I'm talking to everyone. But yes. And that made a difference. And it was part of a sustained effort, from the beginning of the year. And I needed other people to take the path of most resistance with me. And it happened at that school, and it happened with that kid, and I saw it change. We all saw the change, and it's something that's such a missed opportunity for us, because we want to be comfortable. Because, yeah, we work hard to get to that point where the students are working by themselves. And I don't know what kind of line of work you're doing, but I know that in every single job, you do front loading of work, where you work before work so that work becomes easier. And taking the path of most resistance has everything to do with that part where you don't have to actively be working. Because at that point, you get to make the choice. Am I going to sit down and coast, or am I going to look for other things that could improve those whom I serve? And this is a big key in what we're doing. I was going to dedicate a little bit of time to talking about how it's not always the hardest thing, and this and this and that, but we don't need excuses. We don't need reasons to be lazy. And like I said, yes, sometimes just giving someone a hug instead of doing other work is going to be more effective. It's going to make a bigger difference. But for the most part, we don't need to hear that. What we do need to hear, some of us do need to hear that, but what we do need to hear is that, how can I help more? It's not just how can I put more work on my basket, and a lot of times it is because we're lazy, but it's how can I serve others better? And that's what's at the heart of what we're doing, because it does good things to us. It's good for us. Work is good for us, because if I'm, and like I said, I'm a teacher, and so during this time, I'm spending a lot of time by myself, not by myself, but at home. And if I don't pick something up to do, I'm going to be thinking about things. And it's usually not the best things. It's usually that we focus on the stuff that hurt us, on the people that hurt us, and we focus on so many bad things, or on things that are useless and unnecessary, like social media.
That's another thing too, social media, however. We do tend to focus on a lot on the negative things, especially when we're not actively engaging our mission.
Yeah. Oh, I like the wording of that.
Yeah, because the less focused I am on being Catholic and doing my Catholic things,
Yeah.
the more I let stuff affect me, because I'm trying to find a mission. I'm trying to find a battle to fight, some sort of injustice. And no, I'm not some social justice warrior, but when I see a lot of anti-police stuff, and then the people in my life that are pro law enforcement, and they're like, oh, did you see what they're doing and what they're saying about the cops and this and that, and yeah, so what? Like, really, so what? It doesn't matter what they say or do. Evil will not prevail. Recently, there was a little boy that got shot in the head, execution style, in his own little yard, in front of his two little siblings. There were little girls too that saw their little brother die. Not die, but get executed. Let's just call it how it is. Yeah. We can focus on the media not being all over it, like when somebody beats a black man. And it's not about race, and it's not about politics. Let's just call it how it is. We can focus on the negative aspect of it, but why do we need the media to tell us stuff and tell us what's good and wrong? What we need is to really focus on the prayer. That's what we need to be focusing on, not on the injustices that the media shows. Forget the media. It's pointless. What we should be focusing on is our mission, our God-given mission here on earth. Not because we want to earn heaven. We don't deserve heaven. We can't earn heaven. Heaven was already given to us. But with our actions, or lack thereof, we reject or we accept heaven. It's up to us. And I don't need any support from anybody that's not my family. And even if my family didn't support me, it would hurt for sure. But I know I have a Father in heaven that's going to have my back no matter what, even if I don't see it right away. I recently read a book, and I should probably learn the title of the book because I forgot, but it was awesome. It's about people's conversion into, I don't know how to word this, but they gave their heart to the Blessed Mother. And one of the stories was from this priest that when he was a very young man, the becoming a priest was not in the cards. He was actually engaged, and this was during World War II when the Germans actually started bombarding Italy. And this one day they hit the town where he lived, and he was with his fiance, and then the fiance stayed behind doing something, and then he went somewhere else. Then bombarded the area where the fiance was. So he goes to the ruins and he starts digging through where the fiance was, and then he saw what she was wearing before he saw the face. He saw what she was wearing, and long story short, she got killed by the bombs. And then he discovered that his mom was right next to her too.
Oh, dude.
And then he's broken because the love of his life and the first love of his life are done with. Like there's no reset button. So he sees his mom, and then he looks at heaven and he says, now you have to be my mom. When you're focusing on what's truly important, And I know this episode is about focusing, on the hard stuff, or, the path of most resistance. Yeah, we don't always have to take it, but we should definitely take it when we have to take it, because to have the strength to, instead of saying, "Where were you, God? How come you didn't do what I wanted you to do? I love these people and they're good people, and how come this bad thing happened to them?" It's not about you, bro. It's about what God wants for you, what's going to make you grow, how you're going to change the world. Because sometimes you're supposed to get really hurt so that you can get really strong for God. Sometimes bad things do happen to you or to your loved ones. But that's when you go and you go to God, or you go to Mama Mary and say, like, hey, now you have to be strong for me. Now you have to be my mom.
It sounds, I mean, the details are different, but it sounds a lot like John Paul II, you know? Because when, I mean, just thinking about the story that you were talking about in this Italian scenario, the young Polish man around the same time, actually, he was a little bit younger. Um, he lost his mom too, and he said to Our Lady, "Now you must be my mother." And it teaches us something about how we're supposed to deal with all this stuff. When we were recording when my wife and I were recording the quarantine edition of the Rosary, there was that thing about what do we do when things get hard? What do we do in the face of adversity? Is we follow the example of Jesus, who prayed even more fervently, whenever things were bad. And that's what we're to do. Jesus did that, and he put legs on his prayers, and he did what he was supposed to do, not because it was easy, but because it was necessary. And so when we go through this, like we said in the past, and we're going to continue saying, but when we don't get the miracle, we must become the miracle. And sometimes that is the path of most resistance, because it's us ourselves who are resisting God's love and mercy by blaming him for whatever happened. Man, I feel called to say this just because, I mean, it may have nothing to do with the general theme, but it may have everything to do with the path of most resistance for you listening. But this is not a political podcast, and it's never going to be. But we have an election coming up, and there's a couple of people that are looking to make the killing of babies in the womb the law of the land. Not just making it rare and safe, but making it the law of the land whenever you choose, whenever you want it to be. Make no mistake, our choices matter. They really matter, and at least for us, we live in California, so the liberal state is what it's gonna be. And a lot of times it feels like we're being overwhelmed by all these people that have a certain political view. And even Catholics, and yes, Father James Martin has said that a certain political candidate, Joe Biden, is Catholic because he was baptized. Yeah, technically that's true. But make no mistake, your soul is in danger if you are choosing to vote pro-choice, pro-abortion. Your soul is in danger if you embrace this mindset that it's okay to do that because of X, Y, or Z. It's never okay to do that. And we would be doing you a disservice as a podcast of a couple of Catholics that are trying to live their faith if we didn't tell you so. Like I said, we're not a political podcast, but we are a Catholic podcast. Even if our leadership sucks and if they want to cancel whatever it is that we're doing because we're contradicting the norms of society. So let me make this very clear. If you're voting pro-choice, you are voting wrong, morally speaking, and just as a Catholic man. Your soul is in danger, and we will be held accountable for what we do with our free will. There's candidates that are clearly voting against our morals. They're clearly promoting things that go against what we believe. And if we want to excuse ourselves for whatever reason, we're going to be held accountable. I just needed to get that out my chest because it's necessary. We're not telling you what to do. We're telling you that there's consequences to our actions. And we may not see them directly, but we are going to see them. I'm going to shut up now because I got nothing else to say.
It usually boils down to a lot of the messages that we share. I guess like kind of like in a fatherly way. And I'm not saying that, oh, we're your dad.
Nah.
But it's just like how do you become a leader in your family? How do you become a good example? The fullness of manhood or something like that.
Fatherhood is the fullness
Fatherhood.
of manhood.
There you go. Yeah, what you said right now. The English is hard.
It is.
I saw this thing online that was just so good, man. And it goes along the lines of, what Teddy Roosevelt said, nobody cares how much you know until they know how much you care.
Yeah.
Dads, your son won't know what it means to be a man until he first knows that he's delighted in by you.
Another one.
Dads, your son won't know what it means to be a man until he first knows that he's delighted in by you. The reason why that little boy, James, my nephew, listens to me, who doesn't live there, is because he knows that I delight in him. And not in everything he does, but that I delight in him as a person, as a member, as an important member of our family. I recognize that. I celebrate that in him. I give him a high five. We play around. We joke around. I see him get hurt and I tell him to get up because he needs to get up and not just dwell in the pain and the distractions of whatever. And but I do, to be fair, I tell him, hey, if you have to stay down there and cry because the pain is so much, you do that. But if you feel like you can get up and not cry, then get up, because we got a lot more playing to do. And most of the time he gets up. That's why I'm able to talk to him the way I talk to him. And that's why for the most part, he gets up when I tell him to get up and clean up his area. And he does it with, I don't want to say with joy, but he does so willingly because he knows I delight in him. And if it's not clear to you guys, we delight in you. All the support with the prayers. Forget the 5-star reviews, but there's no better review than your prayers. And know that we are praying for you.
Daily.
Because just as our God delights in us, we delight because we know that we have prayer. Because we're not afraid of taking the path of most resistance so that we can get stronger. Because I've said this before in the podcast, but you're not going to stop hearing it from me. It's important to become tough so that we can also be gentle when we need to be, which is most of the time.
Yeah.
Being gentle, strong enough to be gentle, so that when the lion has to come out, you won't feel too bad about it.
Yeah, buddy. I know it's time to close it. I really do, but I also feel like it's important to remind dads out there. And some of you are placed in the stead of dads because dad is missing. Remember that you are the first example of love for your sons, for your daughters. Remind them that they're loved. Some of us may not have heard this a lot growing up, and so it's hard for us to do. But like we've been saying, take the path of most resistance. Stop your kids in their tracks. Give them a hug. Affirm them. Let them know verbally that you love them. Stop your daughters in their tracks. Give them a hug. Kiss them. Remind them that they're valuable, that they're loved, that they matter.
So pray for us.
And we'll pray for you.
Ferm.
Ferro.
Aquitur.
Oh yeah. Stop your wives too and give them a kiss, stuff.